Here to tell you more about this story is one of our industry's leading proponents of long-term care insurance. Please join me in welcoming our second award recipient of the evening, Phyllis Shelton.
It was business as usual when the call came in that morning. It was business as usual when I answered the phone in my usual, "Hello, this is Phyllis Shelton, may I help you?" It was not business as usual when I heard the voice on the other end of the phone say, "This is C. Vernon Duckett, and I'm just calling to ask you how in the world you talked me and my wife into buying these long-term care insurance policies." And I thought, oh my word, here comes my first complaint. I've been doing this almost 20 years, but here it is. But I said to him, "Why, Mr. Duckett, is there a problem?" He said, "No, there's no problem. I'm just calling to tell you this is the best investment we ever made." And then he went on to tell me the things you just heard in that video. I said, "Oh, Mr. Duckett, could you please write me a letter? Because if you would, it would help so many people." 1 week later, I get the letter. To Phyllis Shelton from C. Vernon Duckett. I enjoyed talking with you the other day about how we met and how Helen and I made the decision to buy a long-term care policy. As you know, money was tight in those days. I want you to know that we will be eternally indebted to you. This has turned out to be the best investment we ever made. This long-term care policy has given me peace of mind, security, and independence. As you know, I've had 2 heart attacks, and it's great to be able to go to bed at night and know that my precious wife will be taken care of the rest of her life. I know that the Lord has had his hand in this all along. Thanks again, C. Vernon Duckett. And then when Helen passed away, I got a second letter. And that letter ended with, "You know, with the help of long-term care insurance, I was able to provide the very best for her. Thanks again for everything." And you know, I thought about those words and I thought, you know, they call it insurance. That's not what we're selling. We're selling an experience so that a family can have those feelings of security and peace that Mr. Duckett has shared with us. There are 8 million long-term care insurance policyholders in the United States today. There are about 130 million people over the age of 40 alone. And why is that? I ask myself. And I really think it's because Americans still believe this insurance is nursing home insurance for old folks. They don't understand that it could be the only thing that keeps us out of a nursing home. Mr. Duckett was able to use adult daycare and assisted living with Helen long before the nursing home need came around. Or people don't understand that life happens. Things happen to people of all ages. I do think the stories you're hearing tonight underline succinctly that any of us could be hit by a drunk driver, could have a brain tumor, a stroke, an aneurysm, any number of things in our 20s, 30s, 40s, as young people even, that would make us need long-term care for years. Or maybe they think, oh, I'm too rich, I can self-insure, I have, $3 million. But I wonder if they stop to think that they're using that money to generate income. And let's say at 5%, that generates $150,000 a year in income. If they need long-term care, that income drops by 50% just like that. Or maybe they need long-term care in a down economy, and the 3 million has become 1.5 million. The income's already chopped in half, and now they're going to add long-term care to it? Maybe not. But for millions, and there are so many millions of Americans who don't have several $million in assets, Medicaid quickly becomes the payer of first resort. And they don't have the choice and independence that the Ducketts had. You know, I thought you might find it interesting to know how I found the Ducketts, because when I started selling, I didn't have a client base. So I did seminars and I networked with other professionals. Just so happened, one of the original agents that the Ducketts had wrote a letter to all of his clients explaining the need and said that I would be calling. I called them, and they were all so grateful that he cared that much about them. Most of them met with me, and most of them bought. And all he did was write a letter. Well, I don't want to leave the subject without saying the big picture. I really do believe that long-term care is the real healthcare crisis in America. And I believe that if we allow the baby boomers to fall on any kind of public assistance, that we could have unprecedented taxation in the United States of America. But most importantly, I believe that long-term care insurance is how we can serve the clients that we have. And why do I say that? Because I believe with all my heart that when we sell long-term care insurance, we are selling people the right to stay in control, make their own decisions as long as they live, keep their independence, all the things that you heard Mr. Duckett say in that video and in these letters. And I think all of that boils down to one word. When we sell long-term care insurance, we are selling people the right to keep their dignity. And I don't think you can put a price of any kind on dignity. But don't take it from me. I want you to hear it from my client and my dear friend, Mr. C. Vernon Duckett.
Thank you, and thank you, Phyllis. The video gave you a good sense of the kind of relationship that Helen and I had, and we had a wonderful life together. So rather than talk about our relationship, which I could go on for hours, I would like to give you a little more insight into how Helen and I arrived at the decision to purchase long-term insurance. Phyllis hit the nail on the head when she said that we were planners. This was particularly true of Helen. She was a highly organized person. She didn't do anything without an outline. When we had friends over that had been invited over for dinner, she would write down the menu. She'd make a list of all the things that she needed to do to be ready. I didn't have to do a thing. Just make life easy for me was the main thing. Helen's organization skills were particularly evident in our home. She was an excellent homemaker and mother, and it wasn't an easy job because we moved around a lot. I worked for an oil company and was subject to transfer. And every time we had to move, Helen and Jeff would scope out our house. They would make things easy for me by narrowing it down to 3 with no split voyeurs involved, the only thing I had insisted upon. Once we had made our decisions, Helen would send me back to the house to take measurements. Then before we moved in, she would get out a pad and pencil and paper and place every piece of furniture in that house exactly where it belonged. Every bed, every chest, every drawer, and even the dishes. She had it all planned out, so it was no surprise that Helen had the good sense to get us to thinking about long-term care insurance. I had always taken the lead in the family management of family finance, but I didn't know much about long-term care. We were getting older. Helen realized that insurance could do 2 things for us. First, it could help us maintain our financial independence. Neither one of us wanted to be a financial burden on one another or on our son, Jeff. Secondly, the insurance would guarantee access to high-quality care, which we needed if we ever needed it. And then exactly what happened to Helen got care she needed, and she lived her final years in the life that she deserved with dignity. because most of Helen's care was paid for by the insurance, and I have been able to maintain financial independence. I don't live lavishly, but I do what I want to do, and I don't do anything I don't want to do. One of my passions is golf. One of my passions is golf. I'm 84 years old, but according to your insurance people, I'm 85 now. And I still play golf about twice a week. I'm active in my church. I own my own townhome. I do my cooking, cleaning, yard work, and I have a good friend whose company I enjoy very much. I have a good life. I've been blessed. And let me finish by saying how grateful I am for everything that Phyllis did for us. I wish everyone had an agent with the compassion and concern that Phyllis had and did for us at well-being. I've always been indebted to her and always will be. Thank you very much.